Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker, Scott Kirshner, and Chaz Price. 419-794-3030. That is the phone number. It's 419-794-3030. Online, arhq.com. So here's a question. How many Americans don't have a retirement plan? There's a recent survey that indicates 24% have no strategy beyond depending on just Social Security, and many of them are worried that part of their retirement picture is going to be sharply diminished or even non-existent by the time they actually stop working. So let's speak to them. Let's speak to the ones who haven't taken the time to meet with a financial advisor and actually come up with a written plan. When you create a retirement plan for a client, what does the whole process look like?
Well, I think, when people come in, we kind of take things slow. So we talk about coming in for the first time to really be kind of a visit. I know when you get together with somebody for the first appointment, what does that discovery process look like?
The discovery process that I typically use, I describe as more of, like you said, a conversation, but more of a picture. I'm a visual type of person, and I truly like to envision what this person, what this family wants their retirement to look like. So as they're describing for me what, and estimates of when they want to retire, what they plan on doing, in retirement, who's important to them, those sort of things we start to kind of sketch out in our retirement planning software in the form of cash flows. Generally speaking, how much do you think you're going to need to do this? And as we approach, some of those, as we go along in the retirement planning process, obviously those cash flows are going to get a little bit more detailed. But initially, it's just more so just kind of getting, almost like doing when you first meet with your doctor, kind of getting a feel of the diagnostic and your baseline, where you're at today.
Yeah, Chaz, I love, I've sat in some of your appointments with you, and one of the questions you ask, which I've kind of adopted into, my initial stage of my appointments is, what keeps you up at night about your portfolio and your retirement? And I love that because it helps paint that picture. Mm-hmm. On what's really bothering you. What are your concerns? Because, we've done several shows, we've got several videos out there, and a lot of people don't understand taxes, they don't understand, their Social Security, they don't understand a lot of things. And if that's something that's really keeping them up at night, then you can really hone in on that and pinpoint and help them understand that, mm-hmm. and then move through with your appointment.
Yeah.
And talking about those goals and concerns that they have that are able to map it out, I think when you're looking at what is important in a retirement plan, first and foremost, think about if you're meeting with another firm and they're making financial recommendations and trying to get you to sign paperwork on the first meeting, you may not be working with an organization that's acting in a fiduciary capacity, meaning that they're acting in what's your best interest. It's really difficult, I'd say, in a 30 or 60-minute conversation to have something that talks about all the solutions right mm-hmm. away. You want to slow things down. That first meeting is really to talk about the goals and dreams and desires. It's that discovery meeting. So if you come in and meet with us, consider that first meeting a visit. If anything, it's the choice that you're going to have to make is Diet Coke or Pepsi, water or coffee. We're going to have a laid-back, relaxed atmosphere where we're going to want to find out if we're a right fit together. From there, what we typically do is then gather information. We do an analysis. We might take a week or two to do the analysis. Then we put together what is called a team action plan. So the team action plan is taking a look at the 4 key areas: taxes, estate planning, asset protection, and money management. And then within each of those sections, what we're going to do is we're going to outline areas that maybe we see of concern. So think about these as things like a blind spot. We talk about retirement, like how fast you drive an automobile. Having a co-pilot sitting next to you can help you identify some of those blind spots that maybe you didn't even see coming down the road and say, hey, watch out, there's something bad that's up there, or slow down, there's some danger coming up ahead. We will explain those in our team action plan. So what we do is we write down any areas that we see of concern. We also talk about maybe opportunities. So in some of our previous shows, we talked about how to make sure your lazy assets mm-hmm. are working as hard as possible, getting your money market accounts to the current rates or higher fixed accounts, or taking advantage of what we see as great opportunities in certain investments and stocks and what we love. We list out those opportunities. We also then provide a written summary of those recommendations along with any type of cost that's associated with it. So if it's a husband and wife or anybody, then they can take that information home and then they can go home and kind of digest what's most important to them. Do they want to accomplish all of these goals? How do we set the priority up to get those things put together? We've actually developed a binder process. Within the binder process, we have it both online and we have it where they can get a print copy of it. But as you talk about, we're going to work through all of these sections here. In this section here is taxes. We're looking at the 16 different items that we go through for the tax savers checklist. When we get over and we're working with your section on asset protection, we're looking at things like scheduling an annual review to look at your annual open enrollment period and review what the new options are. Talk about the ways to protect your assets from a nursing home spin down. Then down to the estate planning, talking about, what are the steps that you take when you lose a loved one. So oftentimes it's, one of the two spouses are the driving force in a financial decision, but making sure that the other spouse knows here's the team to go to and the resources that you have available. And by creating this overall binder process, what you'd find is, what's important in a retirement plan to us is getting it right. You only get one shot at retirement. You don't have the luxury of time to make up for mistakes. And so we would rather take things slow, make sure that we go through the process to develop a customized plan that meets your individual goals and objectives. And really it's tailored down to kind of what you're looking for. Anything that you would add to what's important when you're building out a retirement plan?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing that you said there, Nolan, was writing it down. Get a little spiritual on you, but I think it may even be biblical that if you want to get something done, you have to write it down. If you have goals, write them down. And so that's one of the biggest takeaways from the financial planning process is that when we're going through the binder and we're making sure that we're touching on all the aspects of a properly designed financial plan and we're documenting your goals and objectives, I think you just automatically stand a better chance of meeting those goals because you've taken the time to articulate them. We know exactly what the outcome is that we're trying to achieve versus, if you don't have, I use the analogy again, we're flying in pea soup. If we're a pilot and we can't see, our hand in front of our face because it's so foggy out, we have our instrumentation. We're flying by instrumentation. And I think the binder is our instrumentation. We know what sort of income needs you're going to have. We know what sort of risk tolerance that we're going to achieve and an average rate of return. And we know what happens worst case scenario if someone, God forbid, passes away. We have all the proper instrumentation, in the plan for you. It's not to say that we won't adjust it and we don't make course corrections along the way, but we have a process by doing that. And that's the most important thing is having the process and having something methodical versus just kind of I'm throwing my hands up in the air and picking a number out of thin air and why I think you should be in this investment or not.
Well, we've talked about it many times, Nolan. I know you've talked about it a lot, is having that, and like you said, Chaz, having that written retirement plan. It's different to, have a financial advisor, but do you really have a written retirement plan? The numbers, 24% have no strategy. One piece of advice that I could give is, from being on kind of the other side of the table, so to speak, is when you schedule your appointment, and when I'm referring to all of you listeners out there, when you schedule your appointment to sit down with your financial advisor, put down on paper what you think you want your retirement to look like. And then when you come in and meet with one of you two or any other advisor out there, that'll give you a really good idea and help the advisor understand what your thoughts are, because your thoughts may not have any correlation with what a really good retirement plan should look like. So, that's just some advice that, be prepared when you come in and for that first appointment.
And know that nothing is ever going to be for sale. That first appointment, it's
Right.
You're kicking the tires. We're getting to know each other, and I think that helps people get over the number one most difficult hurdle to financial planning, which is getting started. They may be fearful of having that
Right.
conversation.
Something to be mindful of, in the same way, and it's probably been a long time since any of us here have, and probably a lot of people out there, being on a first date. If someone were to propose marriage to you on the first date, you would probably go ahead and walk out of that restaurant right away. Same sort of thing. If someone is presenting you with a plan, a bill of sale at that very first meeting with them, that is not something that is, working specifically for you. There's no way they could have known that. It is a ongoing process. That first appointment is, of course, a fact finding. It is like a first date where you get to know each other, see what your dreams are, what your plans are, and then as time goes on, in subsequent meetings, that is when the plan really comes together. And it's also a feeling out process. See if it's a relationship you want to see going forward. So if you have a plan in place, it's easy to have something to fall back on. If you don't have a plan in place, if you're in that 24%, well. If not now, then when? 419-794-3030 is how you get started now. Scheduling a time to speak with the team at America's Retirement Headquarters, 419-794-3030, or you can go online to the website, arhq.com.